On a personal note, whatever little understanding of spiritual matters is presented in these pages comes from association with my guru, Maharaj Charan Singh, 1916 to 1990, and his successor, Baba Gurinder Singh, born 1954. Both are saints of the Radha Soami lineage of spiritual masters, which has its headquarters at Beas in the Punjab, India. In March 1989, Maharajji called me to meet with him, at which time he asked me to research and write a book that ultimately became The Gospel of Jesus, in search of his original teachings, 1995. Having spent 6 months researching the origins of Christianity and the Christian Gospels, I again met with Maharajji in September 1989. During this short time, I had come to realize that there was a wealth of mystical and spiritual teaching associated with Jesus and other mystics, which had been prevalent in the Mediterranean region and Middle East of that era, and which was little known to the majority of people. When I mentioned to Maharajji that there was more than one book among all this material, and asked him whether he wanted me to consider more than the original project, he replied, "Yes, this is your subject now." Maharajji's comment gave new direction to my research and writing, which had previously centered around the relationship between the mystical and scientific worldviews. At the same time that he asked me to research the teachings of Jesus, I was also asked to undertake a project which, under the guidance of Babaji, has become the multi-volume, A Treasury of Mystic Terms. During my first meeting with Maharajji, he told me, "Use your own language, find your own way of expression." "And no footnotes," he continued. Then, seeing the look on my face, he added, "You can have your references and all that." Basically, he just wanted the book to be approachable. With regard to the Gospel of Jesus and allied projects, he also advised, "And don't use Indian terminology." This guidance I have attempted to follow, and it is from the research undertaken for both these projects that a number of books have been written, including the present work. Much of the material in Awareness of the Divine has been drawn from the 6 volumes comprising Part 3 of A Treasury of Mystic Terms, 2019. When browsing the Treasury, it soon becomes apparent that it contains so much material that the most inspirational gems are not so easily encountered. So while the Treasury is intended to be all-inclusive and to convey information as well as inspiration, the purpose of Awareness of the Divine is focused on presenting a few of the most inspiring of these passages, many of them little known to the majority of readers, on a narrow range of topics. If the reader wants the all-and-everything approach to these subjects, plus a great deal more, spanning the entire range of the world's spiritual traditions, then the Treasury is the place to find it. In my first attempts at the selection and presentation of this material, the quotations had minimal introduction or commentary. The result was not particularly successful, and a number of friends pointed out that the quotes required a few words of introduction to bring them to life and to set them in their context. An attempt was therefore made to do this. Again, in the initial drafts, the penultimate section, The Practice of the Inner Sound, which describes the meditation techniques of the spiritual path that has been my own personal source of inspiration, was absent. I had not wanted to include anything that could have been misconstrued as the promotion of any particular path. But some early readers observed that since the approach of the entire book was informed by an understanding derived from more than 50 years of practicing a particular form of meditation and its associated spiritual discipline, it would be disingenuous to omit any mention of it. In fact, as various reviewers pointed out, the book in many ways leads up to this section as its natural culmination. For this reason, it was added, with a focus on the meditation techniques of which I have first-hand experience, as practiced under the guiding hand of a spiritual master. But the reader is by no means being given to understand that this is the ultimate path to follow. It is simply the path that I myself have followed and which has enabled me to put this book together. When it comes to spirituality, everyone has to find his or her own way. One of the spiritual practices described in Awareness of the Divine concerns the Jesus Prayer, a form of meditational prayer popular among Christians nowadays. Although I had heard about the method, I was not very familiar with its details until, some years ago, Babaji gave me a copy of a remarkable little book, The Power of the Name, by Metropolitan Callistos Ware. Born Timothy Richard Ware, 1934, and appointed as a bishop of the Eastern Orthodox Church in 1982, Metropolitan Callistos was a lecturer in Eastern Orthodox Studies at Oxford University for 35 years until his retirement in 2001. Babaji told me that the book was all Sant Mat, Teachings of the Saints, which is the tradition he teaches. At the same time, he asked me to give a short talk on it at one of the evening meetings with overseas visitors at his center in North India. Some while later, he critiqued the talk and asked me to give it again the following month, with various improvements, to a largely different audience. Among his suggestions was the observation not to spoon-feed people, but to let them work it out for themselves. I believe that around that time, Babaji had handed out many copies of the book. Clearly, he felt its content to be of significant practical value for his disciples. Awareness of the Divine unfolds naturally into 3 parts. It begins by exploring the nature of those glimpses of a higher reality, with which some folk have been spontaneously blessed, moves on to consider experiences of a similar but more continuous and enduring nature, and concludes with descriptions of a few of the practices found in all spiritual traditions that enable ordinary human beings to experience something of this higher reality for themselves. It is the story of human beings discovering their innate and universal spirituality. Apart from the penultimate section, the majority of the extracts collected here have been taken from Western sources. They span more than 2,500 years, with contributors ranging from Greek mystical philosophers to Christian Orthodox monks, to modern Quakers, and to others associated with a variety of belief systems. Naturally, personal accounts of these experiences and practices will reflect the backgrounds of the individuals concerned, but behind them all is something universal to every human being. It is this universal reality that is of primary interest here, and it is hoped that those of other faiths will find much that can be understood within the context of their own path. All the essential truths mentioned could have been illustrated by passages from the literature of any, or all, of the world's spiritual traditions, but then this intentionally short book would have become an extensive and probably unreadable tome. Mysticism is a practical, subjective, inward study of consciousness. It takes place in a realm that transcends words and human concepts. So although God, the mystic reality, and the spiritual path have been portrayed in many ways, according to local language, culture, and religion, the essential truth remains beyond all such human concepts and constraints. The language of the present book may, for the most part, use Western and sometimes specifically Christian terminology, but the transcendent reality itself knows no such limitations. One of these terms, used throughout Christian and Jewish literature, is the divine presence. It implies a personal awareness of the immanence and all-pervading nature of the divine. Although spiritual states of consciousness or awareness and the means of experiencing them are the primary focus of this book, it is not implied that the divine presence is only evident in such states. Many human qualities bear witness to his presence. The gifts of courage, humor, and determination, the heartening warmth of a loving smile, the unexpected kindness and generosity of friends and strangers, the essential goodness hidden, however deeply, in every human heart, and the capacity to remain constant in spiritual endeavor when only darkness and silence are experienced within. All these and more are blessings of the divine, and evidence of his presence that strengthen the heart, making it possible to keep going, whatever the circumstances. There is also an amazing order and integration of processes in the natural world that bears witness to a supernatural designer. Mysticism is an affair of the heart. It is not a doctrine, a prescription, a teaching, or anything that can be set out in words. It is the life behind the doctrine, to which words can only hint. It is a matter of experience, of love, of bliss, of understanding the true nature of things without intellect or analysis. It is an expansion of awareness or consciousness approached by means of spiritual practice or meditation through exercises within oneself that are designed to bring about and to enhance the experience. While the highest mystical experience is said to be of God or reality or nirvana, or by whatever name one cares to call it, there are, as when climbing a mountain, many pleasant meadows, valleys, and streams that can be enjoyed along the way. These may not be places to linger, but they give encouragement, instill confidence, and strengthen the resolve to reach the summit. To the faint-hearted, they may even provide evidence that the summit exists. They are also very blissful, and, as I once heard Maharaji say, if we do not have that bliss, life is not worth living. It is very easy to become purely a follower of doctrine and to lose sight of the reality to which the doctrine points. The majority of people have a doctrine they believe in, however loosely formulated it may be, whether it be religious, spiritual, scientific, political, social, financial, or whatever. It provides a comfortable framework within which to live. Mysticism, too, can be approached as a doctrine, but for the sincere meditator, the intention is always to rise above the doctrine and seek experience of the reality. Sometimes, however, one can become lost on the way and give the doctrine greater importance than is its due. Life, however, has a way of nudging, jolting, or otherwise catapulting us out of spiritual lethargy into a more immediate perception of reality. To be around a spiritual master and to be in his company is to receive a continuous stream of spiritual inspiration. His spiritual wisdom, his focus and dedication, his example, his approach to the difficulties of life, his sense of fun and laughter, and above all the powerful atmosphere of spirituality that surrounds him, combine to lift up the aspiring soul, with seemingly little effort being needed. For the beginner and veteran alike, it can feel that there is no better place to be, and this may well be so. Yet such proximity has its own dangers, for the real guide and master is not the physical human form, however entrancing that may be, but the formless and universal spirit that dwells within, and which pervades every being, every form, indeed every particle of creation. Too much focus on the human form of the master can distract the mind from the universal, nameless spirit, which is the true guide of the soul. It is this universal spirit, which transcends all doctrines and religions, mystical or otherwise, and which is the common heritage of every human being, that is the focus of this book. As Maharaji himself wrote, shortly before he died, to a devoted disciple who had spent many years in his personal company, "May your love of the form culminate in the love of the formless."